Hello, I am going to make some felt peony flowers so that I'll hop on and just kind of make them on live. This is a new flower that I just made the shape for, so I teach how to make these flowers and have petal patterns for them. And this is the peony flower, which is one of the most popular, I feel like, spring flowers there are. So I wanted to work on a new design this year and one that's easy to do. So sometimes I'll have petals that need to be shaped using like techniques where you cut and glue the slits, but it can be pretty time consuming. So I'm just going to show few different options for how I like to make these. Okay, so I think the peony flowers look really good with some shading, which I will do with these pan pastels. You can use eyeshadow also. Actually, I might test this out. This is still a new flower, so I haven't made very many of them yet. I've made like four, I think. So I'm still figuring out like where to put the shading and things when I am in the process of making it. I'll put these here so you can kind of see what we're doing. So that's the flower I'm making. Yeah, it does look like face paint. It's actually a powder, which is pretty cool. So you can use it on all kinds of different surfaces. And I'm using it on felt today. And then when I'm done applying the color, I will add like a hairspray kind of sealer on it so that the powder doesn't come off. But even if I don't add the hairspray, well, yeah, it does come off. But it'll come off a little bit and then the rest will stay. So it doesn't just brush right off the felt. Kind of almost dyes the felt. So this is called pan pastel, and then also sometimes a lot of times I'll just use eyeshadow. So right now I'm kind of playing around with different colors. This is a really light lavender um, belt color. I feel like, I don't know. You really can't go wrong. That's the nice thing about this. I'm trying some different, so this palette is just like a brights palette, so it has a few different purples. This is the only color purple I have for the pan pastel. I'm just kind of seeing. Sometimes I mix too. This is going to look good no matter what we end up doing. That's the nice thing. But the shading look I'm going for, so I did shading on this flower too, but I didn't do it far up enough. So I just need to try that again to where I bring the shading up higher. And then I'll use some heat to curve it. So I'm trying to think. I think what I might do is just go with the dark, and then we can make it again with lighter if I decide I don't like it. But I want the shading to show, like I want it to be visible. So right now it looks pretty dark, but I think once we shape it, it will turn out pretty good. Okay. I'm gonna keep that one over there. Okay, let's try this again. So this is just a makeup wedge kind of sponge thing, and it's the fastest way I found to apply the color to a bigger space. I like using the eyeshadow brush also, but it's pretty small. So I'm kind of wanting to get through these. So I'm just gonna do that. And I've got it just on some wax paper so that it doesn't get my ironing board thing too dirty. But I'm going to add the color to the felt, and then I'll come back with heat and shape the petals so they're curved like that. And I'm using a wool blend felt. So the wool blend felt is really nice to use with the heat. It holds up well to it. But acrylic felt you can use heat on too. So what I'm working on as I kind of move through these is just making sure I go up high enough because I want the shading on these petals to be visible. And once I assemble the flower here in a minute, it's sometimes the color doesn't show if I don't put it up high enough. So last time on that pink one, it wasn't high enough. I'm just kind of going through here. I'm going to just apply purple, a dark purple to the bottom of these light purple petals, and then I'll assemble the felt flower. But I've been kind of transitioning over to making some spring flowers. So poinsettias were popular at Christmas. And then I just did some roses, which I still want to do some more roses. But roses are fun, I feel like, year round. But especially for Valentine's Day, I just released a rose petal pattern and tutorial. All the tutorials are available for free. And then peony for spring, tulip I've got kind of coming up for spring. Let's see if I can cover that up. So spring, I feel like, oh, wildflower. We're gonna do some wildflowers. So I'm kind of in the like testing new flowers phase of things. Hey, great to see you. Thanks for being here. Okay, so I've got that on there, and I'm going to spray this with hairspray. Yeah, I'm looking forward to ordering some felt from the Felt Flower House. I haven't. I'm looking forward to doing that. Okay, so we've got that ready to go. I'm going to scoot these on to the wax paper or the parchment kind of paper stuff. And I'm going to spray it with just this hairspray. And that will seal that shading, whether you're using eyeshadow or pan pastels, that will kind of seal that on there. So I'm going to let that dry just a little bit, just for a couple of minutes. And then, okay, so while I wait for that, I will go ahead and assemble one of these same color peonies, but I'm not going to do the extra steps because one thing I like to talk about when I am making felt flowers is there's so many different ways to make them. You don't have to do like fancy heat method or anything like that. You can just assemble them just right like the felt already is. You don't have to do anything special. So 1, 2, 3. I'm counting as I talk here because this center petal is just a little bit smaller than the bigger outside petals. I need to find, I use 4 for the center. 4 smaller petals, if I can find. These are the little things I'm looking through. I keep my flowers in like a little tub like this. 2, 4, 2. I think that's a smaller one. I'll maybe just do 3 on this. Okay, now for the center of these flowers, I do them 5 inches long by 1 inch wide. So I'm going to come over here to the side and cut that, and then I'll be back over to show you how I assemble the flower. So right now I'm just kind of putting several together to practice myself and then just to tweak the pattern if I need to and to have these for a picture kind of as inspiration. So I've done some pink ones, and I thought I'd do some purple ones. And I'm going to do some light blue and a cream. So the pretty like fall colors. So this is the center. This is just 5 inches this way by an inch tall. And my hands are dirty from the, that's okay. So for this, I'm going to just cut along the length of the strip. And I'm just bringing my scissors, there's still quite a bit of a section there, probably 3/4 of the way across. And this is the fringe that I'm using for the center of the peony flower. Just cut all the way down. And I use 18 gauge floral wire. So this is just floral wire like this that I have ready because I'm putting these on stems. And I just do a little bit of glue at the beginning. And then I'm going to lay the stem right on top of that glue and wrap the felt around that. And this really makes it nice and secure. You don't want the stem like coming out the bottom when you're making the felt flowers. So I like to think about laying the stem right into the hot glue. And do glue along the rest of that. And just keep rolling. And as I'm rolling up the center, I'm keeping the bottom flat. Okay. And then that's what the center looks like. So this is kind of, you can kind of see it. And we're going to put the petals up around this. But these petals won't have the heat, which is fine. It's still going to look really cool. There's just so all we need is the 18 gauge floral wire, the felt, and then cut into the shapes. So I'm going to start with the center, and I'm going to do glue pretty high up, not just at the bottom tab, but a little bit higher up so that I can wrap it around the center, and it will kind of overlap on the fringe. But I want the center of this petal to be tall. And the way we get it to kind of curve around is by putting glue up higher so that the petals don't fall back, so that it's attached to the felt in front of it. So it will stay like that. Let me get another glue. Oh, here's a glue stick. So, and I'm not really worried about placing the petals a certain direction, even though there's that like notch right there. I just kind of randomly place that because it gives that layered kind of natural look. Okay, so we've got the second one right around the center, and I'm just overlapping, and I do want it to kind of be even. It was a little crooked, so I straightened it up. You can adjust your petals a little bit before that glue hardens. Okay, I have some glue showing. I'm gonna just cut that off. One thing I like about doing lives is you can see that I do make mistakes. It's actually, I mean, it's just normal, right? When we're making things, and I wouldn't even necessarily, it's not like a mistake because we can fix things, but things happen and there's ways to fix it. So just something, just don't worry about everything being perfect. Okay, so here's the third one right around there. And I'm going to just place it right over the top. Because sometimes I'll like make sure that like normally I would have a petal not be behind. I would have one side be in front and one be behind. But for this flower, you can do that, but it doesn't really matter. We're going to end up with so many petals layered around that I'm just not going to worry about that. Okay, so we've got our first layer of petals around the center, and the reason that they're standing up nice and tall is because there's glue up the side and that's attached to the fringe. So it's glued and standing. And the nice thing about that is we don't have to do anything special to our petals to get that. So we don't have any extra steps, which is helpful as far as like time goes. When you don't want to spend forever, you know, making a flower. Okay, so I've got glue on this. And I'm just going to place it a little bit lower. So it's going to hang down just a little bit and kind of wrap around the bottom. And you can apply these in different ways. There's really, I mean, the idea is we're just layering on a lot of petals for this peony flower. So it doesn't have to be like perfectly like I'm doing it. For the first layer around, I do 3 to 4, and then for this second layer, I'm going to go ahead and do 4 petals. So I'm overlapping a lot to get them to fit. And these are nice and wide, and that gives a look of just a lot of like full petals and full, like a full flower without having to put just a ton of petals on. So by overlapping larger petals, we get like a nice full look in our felt flower without having to just, you know, cut and hot glue a bunch of flowers on here, or petals on here. And the way I cut the petals is either with my Cricut Maker and my rotary blade, or I like to use wax paper because that works really well too. You can also use cardstock. So there's a PDF option where you can print the pattern and then cut it out and then just trace it with like a heat erasable pen. There's all kinds of ways to cut these petals. Okay, so we've got our first layer and our second layer done. And then we're going to do one more layer of petals for this peony flower. And this one is going to go about the same as the last one did. As far as the length, you know, we're kind of putting it down and it's coming together at the bottom. So they might be a little bit lower, but I want it to narrow down at the stem right there. And we will put a back on our flower here in just a little bit. So that's going to cover everything nicely and give like a really finished look. So where this is meeting up at the stem will be covered up with some green. Put that on there so you can see it. Okay, and then just keep going around. We are almost done with this one, and then we'll put the back of the flower on it. As long as I have one cut. If not, I can cut one and show you how to do that part of cutting the felt with scissors. Okay, let's see. So this is getting close. I could stop here. Well, so this gap right here, like I see, this is the petal I just put. This is the end of this layer where I started. So I'm just going to finish it out. I'm not going to cram another. I was hoping to put 2 more petals, but I probably didn't overlap enough at the beginning, which is fine because I'm just not worried about each of those the flowers having the same amount of petals. Like it doesn't really matter. So, okay, so there we go. Now I will go ahead and spray this with hairspray. And what the hairspray does is it just kind of stiffens the felt up a little bit. Thank you. So glad you like it. Yeah, I really enjoy making these spring flowers. I think it's just fun. And then of course with the layers of petals like this, just makes for a really pretty flower. So I'm just going to kind of shape things a little bit. So the hairspray is on there, and I can now kind of bring my fingers in and just curl the petals up a little bit. So I'm just curving them, and that hairspray on there, the felt's a little bit wet and damp. So I'll just twist it and shape it. And then when the hairspray dries, the felt will stay like that. Let's see. You can even just smash it. Just one thing I've learned, don't be afraid to kind of play around with the felt. It holds up. This wool blend felt that I use holds up really well. Okay. Now I'm going to sit that there and let me print. Okay. So there's different ways to cut out your petal shapes. And I have patterns on my website that are either like a PDF that you can use to print onto paper through your printer. You can trace it onto freezer paper, or just print it straight onto freezer paper, depending on what kind of printer you have. You just have a regular inkjet, but I don't think the freezer paper is recommended for people with like a laser printer. And then you can cut out your felt that way. And I really like using the freezer paper because it makes it a lot more precise. Let me show you. Oh, whoops! I sent it to the wrong thing. Let's try that again. I have one printer in here that's for like color, and then I have one that's a bigger printer, and I sent it to the wrong one. So, but this is what the pattern looks like. So this is the petal. We have this is just a tiny bit smaller than these. It's really hard to tell on the camera, but just a little bit smaller. This is what we use for the center. And then this is the leaf, and this is the back of the flower. So that's what the PDF looks like. And, oh, and I just use, a lot of times I'll just print it onto freezer paper and then use this little iron to attach the freezer paper to the felt. It's also a great way to use up scraps because we can really get the most out of our felt by using this kind of a method because we can just fit everything really close together. Okay, so this is the back of the flower, the peony flower that we use to kind of cover it up and make it look really nice and finished. So I've got that ready. My iron takes just a second to heat up, but I'll show you. This is like a glossy side, and this is the matte side. So I just put that there. See if my iron's hot enough yet. I think so. I think it's doing the trick. So that just irons it right onto there. And you can tell, like, when you kind of tug at the edge a little bit. This side's coming up just a little bit, which is fine. It will still, I could iron it over again, but I don't really mind it doing that. So I can just use these scissors, and I'm going to cut out the shape. When I'm hand cutting, I usually steer with the opposite hand I'm holding my scissors in, so I'm right-handed. These are bigger. These are catching on the back. When I turned it, the scissors were catching. So I'm going to do this instead. I'm just cutting along that line. And then in a second, I'll peel off the pattern. So it's like almost like a stencil, a removable stencil. And then we'll have the felt we need for the finish out the flower. And then I already have some leaves cut, so I'll show you how I add the leaves also. Yeah, sorry, I will check comments every once in a while and then forget to look up. So this is freezer paper, and I buy it on Amazon, and it's actually the kind I buy is freezer paper that comes in sheets. It's like an 8.5 by 11 sheet, but you could use like Reynolds freezer paper from the kitchen section as well. This is just made for applique, like for quilters or something, and it is meant for kind of crafting. Here, let me show you the packaging. This is what I'm using, like exactly what I'm using right now. If you want to screenshot it or something. The Gypsy Quilter, this is on Amazon, and I think it's like $11 for 50 sheets. But it's just freezer paper. And it's the same kind of freezer paper you could get at Walmart, like in the kitchen section. So, but I like that paper because it is, it's in sheets already, and I run it through my printer, so that makes it really easy. Okay, so I want to be able to run the stem through the middle of this. And so I'm folding it in half, and I'm just snipping it right there. And then when I open it back up, that allows me to have a spot to put the stem. That stem is longer than I need, and it's getting in my way. So I'm just going to slide it right through there. This is wool blend felt. So I actually have never used 100% wool, just mainly because of the cost, probably, even though I know it's great quality. But yeah, this is just wool blend felt. So like on Etsy or in a Google search, if you just search wool blend felt, that's what I'm using. So I'm just going to bring this up and behind this flower. I'm using hot glue with this detailed tip hot glue gun. And the back of this flower will be included with the peony. I don't have it up on my website yet, but I have a design hub where for like $10 a month, you can get access to all of the patterns I have, and this will be all of this stuff. All of this is included. Anything digital, well, anything you see me make is in there. So I like to make, I don't actually sell finished flowers right now. I'm working towards maybe doing that again, just time wise, but what I do is teach you how to make them. So I'll have all of these patterns up and help you make them with whatever questions you have. Okay, so I'm going to add some leaves to this main stem, and I am going to use 22 gauge floral wire. So for the main stem, I'm using 18 gauge. And then for the leaves, I'll add in this 22 gauge. So for these leaves, I like to add a little bit of wire. So to do that, I'm just going to put glue down the center of the felt flower and then lay the wire in the glue and then just fold it. Okay, and what I'm doing is I'm just folding it over the wire and pressing it down really good so that the wire doesn't show when I open it back up. If it does show, like if I missed a spot, I can just go back in and add more glue. So like I didn't get it all the way to the tip. I don't know if you can see it. So what I could do is I could either just cut it off or I could add, I'm trying to decide what I want to do. My parakeets, I have parakeets in the other room and they are loud right now. I don't know what they're so loud about. I have the door closed and I can hear them. They must be. I don't know. Let me go check on them. Okay, so there's that. So I'm just going to, I think I'm going to go ahead and just snip this off. Let's see how that looks. There is some wire. I don't want to mess up my scissors. Use this. Okay, I think that'll work. So we've got the wire, and it's crazy how much the wire adds to the leaf, like how much of a difference it makes. But the cool thing about it is when we add it to the stem is we can curve it around and move it and shape it. And I'm liking the look of that wire for this specific flower. You don't always have to do that, but it's a fun option. So I'm just going to kind of cut it off right there. And then I'll do that again. So just straight down the middle or as much as you can, and then lay that 22 gauge wire right on top, and then quickly fold over and just hold it. And we don't want to use too much glue to where it, like I just had some glue ooze out. It doesn't, like it dried really quick, and this hot glue gun I use isn't super powerful. It's just a little shrub under detailed tip. So it's not, this hot glue doesn't come out like smoking or really, really hot and doesn't burn me. But I do want to be careful not to just drop that hot glue right on my skin. So I am thinking about that. Okay, so we've got 2 leaves, and I'm going to put these just kind of right next to each other and bring my flower over and lay it like this. And then I'm just going to hold it with one hand and twist these wires just with this hand. And you can use floral tape. A lot of felt florists I know use floral tape. I am just not a fan. I know it's because I haven't practiced it enough, but I'm just not a fan. I think it's hard to use. So I just twist the wire around, and it doesn't bother me to have that wire right there. Let me get those printers off. They're being loud. Okay, so what I can do if this wire's sticking up just a little bit is just pinch that down right there. Okay, so that's that flower. And I can just kind of play around with that and get the petals to lay how I want. So we've got that light purple peony there, and the leaves are added, and this is what the back looks like. And we can just add it in with our others. So I've got this color I've done this color. This has the heat shape, which I'm about to show you how to use heat to shape the petals. This is a pink one that I did without heat shaping anything. So it kind of goes more with that. So these will be really pretty, I think, in a bouquet of several flowers. So this is what we're working on. Okay, I'm gonna leave those there. And I'm going to bring these petals back over that we added the shading to a little bit ago. And I'm going to move them over onto this ironing pad that's on my desk. And I'm going to add the heat. Okay. So the way I add heat is by using this, and it's a Clover mini iron. So this is from Amazon. I'm in the US, and this is not very expensive in the US. I think in other countries it is more expensive, unfortunately, but I'm getting this shading everywhere. It's on my hands. Baby wipes are my best friend in the craft room, so I'm gonna use that. And sometimes this will get on my desk, and a magic eraser will clean it well. But okay, so this heat tool has different attachments. So it's a Clover mini iron 2, and it allows you to put on different attachments. So anything metal that you see is hot, and be very careful not to touch that. Thankfully, it's nice and long, so there's really not too much of a danger of touching it, especially using it this way to where your hand's not even beside it. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is just arrange all of these petals, and then I'll use my tool to, a way I can just make sure that it's facing the right way. Okay. I'm just going to come through here, and what I'm doing is I want this to be like a dome. Shape. So I'm just giving some movement to the petals and shaping them like this. I'm just pressing it down and getting that curved look right there. Okay, so there's 4 smaller petals that go in the center, and I try and keep those separated because once everything's curved, it's harder to tell apart the small and the big, which obviously means it's probably not that big of a deal. But I'll usually set those to the side because it does help a little bit to have those separated. So I'm just using my heat tool to curve this up there. Okay. This is an extra step that takes a little bit of time. I mean, it's not more than maybe 5 minutes to do this, after everything's ready. But it is an extra step and obviously an extra expense, which is why I always like to make sure to teach you how to make the flowers without any extra tools other than the hot glue gun. But for those, some people want some different techniques, like the shading, for example, and using heat. So this is a fun one, and I feel like this flower is one of the flowers that's worth it to where you really get the benefit of the heat shaping for this flower. Like it does make a big difference if you want to do it because it gives us that curved petal that the peony has. Like it comes up and around, so it is pretty. And then once these are, the heat is set on these, then it is like it's really easy to assemble this flower. So it's not very hard to assemble once you have the petals all ready to go. I think I'm noticing on this felt, which is interesting, is that you can kind of see, like I'm not loving the look of that shading. I haven't done a lot of shading myself, and I have noticed that sometimes certain colors look better with like the light color felt with this dark shading might have been too much of a contrast, but we're just gonna go take it all the way and see how it looks assembled. And it's one of those things where the more you practice, the better you get at it. So I won't learn how to, do the color if I don't practice. And felt flowers are definitely one of those things that's a trust the process kind of a craft. When you put it all together, it really turns out so pretty. But it is one of those things you just have to keep going. Don't stop, because that's how we get better. Okay, so we've got that on there. Those are all shaped and ready to go. And we'll do the center, use the same size of center that we used a little bit ago, which is just a yellow strip that's 5 inches by 1 inch wide. So 5 inches long by 1 inch wide. So that's what I'm measuring over here real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's it. Make sure I have a stem ready to go. And then I'm going to cut the fringe along the length of this strip. So this is the assembly part. This is the fun part because we get to see it all come together. To unplug that. Okay. Making sure that little curling iron was off because it's one of those things you don't want to leave on when you're not using it. It does get pretty hot, so you have to be careful. Okay, so we've got the fringe all along that. Bring my glue gun. Do that. Got the glue on the felt, and then the wire goes right on top of that. And that helps it to make sure and not slide out the bottom of your flower before we put the back on it. Just roll it up, and I kept the bottom flat the whole way down. And then I'm going to start adding the petals. So I do want the glue up pretty high for the center because these are going to be nice and tall. We want that kind of that closed center. Okay, so I've got it just like this to where it kind of comes down right here. I feel like each time I make this flower, I make it a little bit different because I haven't made it very many times yet. This is a new petal shape. So, nice thing is you really can't go wrong with this. It has just that really lots of layered petals. So it's really forgiving flower to so much going on with it. I'm going to do 4 around. the center. So I've got my last one that will fit right there in that gap. Place it there. Okay, so this is what it looks like from the top. This is what it looks like in here. Okay, then we're going to do another 4 petals, kind of placing them right there. And one cool thing that I really like about the shape of this petal is that that dip at the bottom helps the petals kind of come together and look really nice and neat on the back. So we're not going to have a lot going on back there, which will make it easy to add the finished like flower steeple back on it. These are really overlapped a lot in order to fit the amount of petals that I want to fit. Okay, and then just stick that last one. So this is the last one on this layer. And we'll kind of see how it's looking. Okay. This is how it's looking right now. So we've got 1 more layer, and I'm going to try and fit 5. And if I don't fit 5, that's okay. I'm not going to stress about it. I'll just fit however many come around. Can't go wrong. So I'm just sticking this right here. And I start the new layer. I like to, so these 2 petals kind of come together right here, and then I like to put this petal behind it where it overlaps, and everything is kind of staggered and layered around instead of stacked right behind each other. Like I don't want it to be a stacked look. I want it to be more of a layered look. That way we can get the full benefit of seeing all the pretty curves in the flower. Okay. And I'm going to do 2 more. Got this one right here. And then I'm going to fit 1 more, and it'll be kind of tight squeeze, but I want 1 more here to fit. So let's see. Okay, so this is the spot where I'm going to put the last one, and it will fit just right there. Yeah, and that's the last petal. So I want the hot glue to harden really well and stick. Make sure I give it time to do that. And then, so these, this is wool blend felt that I've used hairspray on. So I use this hairspray, and I use a pan pastel like shading. That's that dark purple. And then I hairsprayed it again to kind of seal that in there. And then I used this tool to shape the petals, and then I assembled it around the center, and that's what's giving us this peony flower that has this style. You can use the same petal without any of all that extra stuff, without having to shape it or anything, and get more of this look, which they're both pretty flowers. Okay, so for the back, I think I did just see that I found a back that I didn't realize I had. So I don't need to cut another one like I did a little bit ago, but if I needed to cut another petal, I would just use this shape that I used a few minutes ago. This is from the wax paper, and I can iron it right back on again. And you can reuse these wax paper stencils at least 3 times, sometimes more. So that's one of the cool things about that wax paper is they're reusable stencils. Well, reuse time forever. But just cut that so that the slit is there for the stem to slide through. And I'm going to bring that up and behind the flower and press it there. And I'm just putting a little bit more glue at the base of each of those leaves. I'm going to leave this one a little bit more open, not necessarily glue all the way up the side. But where I do push glue, or where I do put glue, I want to make sure it's pushed up against the felt so that it doesn't dry without attaching to something, because then we'll just have dry glue that we can see, and we don't want that. Okay, so there we go. And sorry if I'm not looking a lot. If you have any questions and I missed it, just ask me again. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching and sharing and liking. I appreciate that so much. I really love crafting with people and teaching you how to make these felt flowers, because they really are a lot of fun and it's not very expensive to get started. I really feel like it's like an affordable craft because you just need wool. You can start with wool felt you can start, sorry, you just need felt. You can start with acrylic craft felt from the craft store. And then if it's a hobby that you're really enjoying, you can try wool blend felt, which is what you'll see me using, but you can make these flowers with just regular craft store felt also. And I have these patterns on my website. I send out a free pattern every month, and then also have them in like a Design Hub membership group. So there's lots of options. You can also just kind of see what I'm doing and hand cut your own petals. So thanks for being here. I'm going to hop off for now, but I will try and do this again soon. And let me know if you ever have any questions. I'm happy to answer them.